Now let's take a look at this figure 17-4 from Stallcup's Electrical Design Book, Volume 2. And we're dealing with isolation switches in accordance with 230.204, 490.21e, and 490.22. Now notice the basic rule is that an isolation switch has to have a warning label put on it in accordance with 490.22 to identify it as an isolation switch, and do not operate this isolation switch under load. Now you notice the isolation switch in the top illustration has service entrance conductors coming in with a disconnect and a circuit breaker is used to disconnect, say, an all switch type switch, or just serve as a protection to the equipment. So you have a circuit breaker there with disconnecting means to isolate that circuit breaker. If you need to repair it, work on it, or service it in some way in accordance with the Annex K and Chapter 7 of 70E, as well as Chapter 17. When I say 70E, I quoted that wrong, 70B. Now, in the next illustration, you see the isolation switch, disconnect there, just an isolation switch. Then you have a circuit breaker ahead of the oil switch that you see there. And the oil switch is a disconnect. Fuses provide the service over current protection. Now, a lot of the electricians, they did not like these oil switches because you couldn't see the make and break of an oil switch. If that was the case, they just didn't seem to like it. You had to do a little bit more testing to make sure the system was disconnected, because we've been taught high voltage just doesn't forgive. If you get into a high voltage type system, it'll heat up the liquids in your body, and they turn to steam and will blow through your skin. High voltage is a very dangerous voltage to be messing with. You got to be very careful. And then in the last illustration, we show a disconnecting means and a fuse switch being used as disconnecting means. And notice fuses rated for the purpose could be used there, see. But you see that the service conductors is using a fusible disconnect properly rated to disconnect the oil switch. So when fuses are the disconnecting type, the fuse may act as an isolation switch. Overcurrent protection for these systems are found in 240.100 and 240.101 in the NEC. Now, we've already talked about, the warning signs: danger, high voltage, keep out. Danger, do not open under load, such as this isolation switch. Review 490.48B, 490.53, 110.21B, as well as 110.34C. And this figure 17-4 is illustrating this concept of using an isolation switch to isolate the equipment that is being repaired, worked on, or serviced in some manner.